Okay, so you want to own a Ferrari. The red one, naturally. You have seen it in the showroom, or more likely, you have seen it on someone else's Instagram. Parked outside a restaurant you cannot get a reservation at, gleaming under a sunset that looks slightly too perfect. You have run the numbers in your head. You have done well. Business is good. You can swing maybe $400,000. You have earned this. Here's the problem. The sticker price on a Ferrari is not the price of owning a Ferrari. It is the admission ticket to a financial ecosystem so carefully engineered that most owners do not fully understand what they have signed up for until the second year's bills arrive. The car is the cheapest part. Let's start with what everyone thinks they know. A new Ferrari, say, a 296 GTB, the mid-engine V6 hybrid that replaced the F8 Tributo, carries a base MSRP of $342,905. That number is real. It is also a fantasy. Nobody buys a base Ferrari. The options list on a Ferrari configurator is not a list of upgrades. It is a psychological extraction tool. Carbon fiber racing seats, $8,900. Carbon fiber door sills, $4,200. Special paint, not the kind they mix at a body shop, but the kind with a name like Rosso Corsa Metallizzato or Grigio Silverstone, $12,000 to $18,000. The passenger display, which lets the person sitting next to you see the speedometer on their own screen, another $4,600. A sports exhaust that makes the car sound the way you already assumed it would sound, $6,800. Add in the extended carbon fiber package, the front lift system so you do not shatter the nose on a speed bump, and the racing stripe you are now emotionally committed to, and you're looking at $50,000 to $120,000 in options before a single tire has touched asphalt. According to Ferrari's own financial disclosure data for 2024, the average revenue per vehicle shipped was approximately $525,000. That is not the limited edition. That is the average. But the sticker price, even the real one, is just the beginning. Before you drive it home, you owe your state sales tax. In California, that is 7.25% to 10.25%, depending on your county. On a $420,000 purchase, you are writing a check for $30,000 to $43,000 to the state of California for the privilege of having completed a transaction. In Virginia, you will pay personal property tax every single year based on the car's assessed value, roughly 4% per year, which on a $420,000 Ferrari comes out to approximately $16,800 annually. That is not a one-time fee. That repeats every year, whether you drive the car or not. Then there is the federal gas guzzler tax. If the car's combined EPA fuel economy falls below the threshold, and almost every Ferrari does, the IRS stamps an additional $1,700 to $7,700 onto the Monroney sticker at the point of sale. You did not do anything wrong. You just bought a car that drinks premium fuel the way a hedge fund manager drinks Montrachet. Speaking of fuel, a Ferrari 296 GTB averages somewhere around 12 miles per gallon in the real world, not the EPA fantasy number. At current premium fuel prices of roughly $5.50 to $6 per gallon, even moderate driving, say 3,000 miles a year, which is generous for most Ferrari owners, costs $1,500 to $1,800 annually. For context, the average American drives 13,500 miles a year. Most Ferrari owners drive less than a quarter of that. The car spends most of its life sitting. And sitting, as we will discover, is not free. Now, let's talk about insurance. You cannot insure a Ferrari through your regular auto insurance provider. Most standard carriers, Geico Progressive, State Farm, either cap their underwriting at $150,000 to $250,000 or decline supercars outright. You need an agreed value specialty policy from a company like Hagerty, Grundy, Chubb, or Pure. These policies lock in the full declared value of the car. So if it is totaled, you get your $420,000 back, not whatever a claims adjuster decides your car was worth after 3 years of depreciation. The premiums for these policies on a production Ferrari, a Roma, a 296, an F8, run between $5,000 and $12,000 per year, depending on your age, driving record, and where you live. If you are under 35, expect the higher end. If you are under 25, most specialty carriers will not touch you at all. And here's the part most people do not realize. These policies require proof that you own a separate daily driver. You cannot insure a Ferrari as your only car. The insurer assumes correctly that a Ferrari driven daily is a Ferrari being destroyed slowly. Here is where the costs start to feel less like expenses and more like a subscription service you did not know you signed up for. Ferrari, to their credit, includes a 7-year genuine maintenance program with every new car sold. Oil changes, filter replacements, brake fluid flushes, belts, factory diagnostics, software updates, all covered for 7 years or 12,500 miles per year, whichever comes first. The program even transfers to subsequent owners within the window. Sounds generous. It is not purely altruistic. What the program does not cover is every part of the car that actually wears out: tires, brake pads, brake rotors, clutch wear, battery replacement, suspension components. And this is where the numbers get interesting. A set of 4 tires, Pirelli P0 or Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2, the only rubber that fits, costs $2,200 to $3,800 installed. That includes mounting, balancing, and alignment, which on a Ferrari runs $500 to $900 per tire because of staggered widths and fragile carbon ceramic components nearby. Brake pads alone, front and rear, run $5,000 to $8,500 because they are carbon ceramic specific, and the labor involves carefully removing and reinstalling extremely sensitive rotor assemblies. And if those rotors themselves need replacing, which they eventually will, especially if you have taken the car on a track day, a full 4-corner carbon ceramic brake disc replacement costs $22,000 to $35,000. Read that again. That is the price of a new Honda Civic for brakes. But the single most terrifying line item on a Ferrari service invoice is the dual-clutch transmission. The 7-speed DCT in most modern Ferraris is an engineering marvel. It shifts faster than any human being can blink. It is also, when it fails, a financial event. A repair, a seal leak, a speed sensor failure runs $12,000 to $22,000. If the entire transmission assembly needs replacement, and outside the warranty window, this is not uncommon for high-mileage or track-driven cars, you are looking at $38,000 to $55,000 for a gearbox on a car that already cost you $420,000 before you added the racing stripe. And then there is storage. A Ferrari cannot sit in your driveway baking in the sun. It cannot sweat in an unventilated parking garage. It needs climate-controlled, covered, secured storage with a battery tender plugged in at all times. If you do not have a temperature-regulated garage of your own, and many Ferrari buyers in Manhattan, Miami, or San Francisco do not, you are paying a specialized exotic car storage facility $400 to $1,000 per month. That includes battery tenders, tire flat spot prevention rollers, and the kind of white-glove concierge services that sound luxurious until you realize you're paying someone $12,000 a year to babysit a car you drive 3,000 miles. Now, before we move on, there is a cost category that most first-time Ferrari buyers do not even know exists until a detailer explains it to them: paint protection. Ferrari paint is not the same as the paint on your daily driver. It is thinner, softer, and dramatically more expensive to repair. A single rock chip on a fender in Rosso Corsa can cost $800 to $1,200 to touch up at an authorized body shop, which is why virtually every serious Ferrari owner wraps the car in paint protection film, a clear, self-healing urethane layer that covers the nose, hood, fenders, mirrors, and rocker panels. A full-body PPF wrap from a shop that specializes in exotics, XPEL Ultimate Plus or Suntech Ultra, runs $7,000 to $12,000. Add a multi-stage paint correction and ceramic coating on top, another $1,500 to $3,500. You are spending $10,000 to $15,000 to protect a $12,000 paint job. Let that land for a moment. And if you are considering a used Ferrari rather than new, say a clean 2015 F355 or a 2005 360 Modena, the economics do not get friendlier. They get worse. Older mid-engine Ferraris require what the service community calls an engine-out belt service every 3 to 5 years. The timing belts on those flat plane crank V8s cannot be accessed with the engine installed. The entire powertrain must be dropped from the car, serviced, and reinstalled. Cost $10,000 to $15,000 every cycle, regardless of mileage. If you skip it, the belt snaps. If the belt snaps, the valves meet the pistons. If the valves meet the pistons, you are now shopping for a new engine. There is also the infamous sticky buttons problem. Nearly every Ferrari produced between the late 1990s and early 2010s suffers from a degrading, soft-touch interior coating that turns tacky and eventually dissolves. Fixing it means stripping and refinishing every affected surface in the cockpit. $5,000 to $12,000 at a specialist. You bought a Ferrari because you wanted to feel something. You did not expect that something to be the dashboard sticking to your fingers. Here's where it gets interesting. On top of all of these unavoidable costs, Ferrari has built an entirely separate revenue layer designed to extract even more money from you voluntarily. It is called personalization, and it is the single most profitable product Ferrari sells per square inch. The entry-level program is Atelier Ferrari, available at factory hubs in Maranello, Shanghai, and New York. It offers an extended palette of colors, technical fabrics, carbon fiber trims, and contrast stitching that are not available in the standard configurator. An Atelier build typically adds 10% to 25% to the vehicle's base price, $30,000 to $80,000 in options on top of the $50,000 to $120,000 you already spent. Then there is tailor-made, the top-tier bespoke program, which requires one-on-one sessions with a design team at Maranello. You can choose from non-catalog paint formulas, vintage racing leathers, cashmere headliners, teak interior trim, and custom liveries inspired by historic race cars. A tailor-made build adds 20% to over 100% to the base MSRP, regularly $100,000 to $400,000 per build. Ferrari does not need you to buy these options. It needs you to want them, and you will. Because the person who just spent $350,000 on a Ferrari is not the kind of person who settles for the standard steering wheel. Let's add it up. Before you have ever taken the car on a proper weekend drive, you have committed to $30,000 to $50,000 in annual carrying costs, insurance, property taxes, storage, fuel, and consumable wear items every year. Whether you drive 10,000 miles or 500. You wanted a sports car. What you got is a monthly obligation that rivals a mortgage payment in most American cities. That sounds manageable. It is not. Now, here is the part that separates Ferrari from every other expensive car on the planet. You did not just buy a car. You entered a hierarchy. Ferrari operates the most sophisticated client tiering system in the luxury world, a 4-level pecking order that determines not what you can afford to buy, but what Ferrari will allow you to buy. At Tier 1, you are a first-time buyer. You can order a Roma or a 296 GTB, the entry points. Wait time, 18 to 30 months from deposit. At Tier 2, you have purchased 3 to 5 Ferraris, you service exclusively at authorized dealers, and you have held each car for a minimum period. You are now eligible for the Purosang, the V12 convertibles, the Spider variants. At Tier 3, you have owned 5 to 10 or more Ferraris. You have bought previous special editions, and you participate in Ferrari Challenge Racing or Cavalcade Rally events. You can now be considered for limited special series cars, the 812 Competizione, the SF90XX Stradale. At Tier 4, the Summit, you do not request anything, Maranello calls you. You own 10, 15, 20 or more Ferraris, including historic Classiche certified models and previous flagship hypercars. You are invited, not permitted, invited to purchase an Icona or Halo car, the Daytona SP3 at $2.25 million, the F80 at $3.9 million. This is the dirty secret of Ferrari ownership. The car you actually want is never the car you're allowed to buy first. You buy the Roma you did not really want so that 3 years later you might be offered the 812 Competizione you actually wanted. You buy the 812 Competizione and hold it for 2 years so that you might be invited to purchase the Daytona SP3. Each purchase is not a transaction. It is an audition, and the audition is expensive. Before we talk about what happens when you get it right, we need to talk about what happens when you get it wrong. Preston Henn was a multi-millionaire entrepreneur and one of the most prominent Ferrari collectors in the world. When Ferrari announced the LaFerrari Aperta, just 209 units, Henn mailed an unsolicited $1 million deposit check directly to Ferrari CEO Sergio Marchionne. His check was returned. He was denied. Henn sued Ferrari in U.S. federal court in 2016 for defamation, claiming the rejection damaged his reputation among collectors. He later withdrew the lawsuit when he realized it permanently destroyed any future relationship with Maranello. A man worth hundreds of millions of dollars, with a collection most museums would envy, learned the hard way that at Ferrari, money does not buy access. loyalty does. And loyalty in Ferrari's system means spending millions on cars you were allowed to buy in order to someday be allowed to buy the one you wanted. David Lee, another prominent collector who owned the legendary Big Five, the 288 GTO, the F40, the F50, the Enzo, and the LaFerrari, was initially passed over for a LaFerrari Aperta allocation due to past flipping suspicions and high public visibility. To regain factory approval, Lee spent millions purchasing standard production models, a 488, a GTC4 Lusso, and 812 Superfast, rebuilding his local dealer relationship from scratch, attending official Ferrari events and cavalcade rallies before finally being readmitted into the allocation tier for the Daytona SP3. He bought 3 cars he did not need to earn the right to buy one car he wanted. That is not a purchase. That is a subscription with prerequisites. And if you break the rules, if you flip a limited Ferrari before the contractual holding period expires, Ferrari does not just cancel your next allocation, they blacklist you globally, permanently. Justin Bieber was reportedly placed on Ferrari's restricted purchaser list after modifying his 458 Italia with a Liberty Walk wide-body kit and custom wrap, then selling it at a Barrett-Jackson auction within a year of ownership. Deadmau 5 received a formal cease and desist from Ferrari North America after wrapping his 458 Spider in a Nyan cat livery and replacing the badges with custom Ferrari emblems. Ferrari claimed trademark infringement and brand degradation. He stripped the modifications and sold the car. Fashion designer Philipp Plein was sued by Ferrari in Italian court for posting promotional Instagram photos placing his shoe collection on the hood of his 812 Superfast. The court ruled in Ferrari's favor and ordered Plein to pay over €300,000 in damages. You do not own a Ferrari the way you own other things you pay for. You own it the way a tenant occupies an apartment with rules, restrictions, and a landlord who can revoke your lease. Here is where the economics become either a tragedy or a triumph, depending entirely on which Ferrari you bought and when you bought it. Let's look at 2 scenarios: same buyer, same budget, same year, same city. Scenario 1, the optimistic path. You buy a Ferrari 812 Competizione in 2022 at its limited allocation price of approximately $600,000, optioned to roughly $750,000 with tailor-made specifications. You drive it 2,000 miles a year for 3 years. You pay your insurance, your storage, your property tax, your consumables. Your total carrying costs run approximately $105,000 over those 3 years, about $35,000 per year. At the end of year 3, the 812 Competizione, one of 999 built, the last naturally aspirated V12 Berlinetta Ferrari will ever make, is trading on the secondary market between $1.6 million and $222 million. You sell it for $1.9 million. After subtracting your $750,000 purchase price and $105,000 in ownership costs, you walk away with approximately $145,000 in profit. You made over $1 million driving a Ferrari on weekends. Not a typo. Scenario 2, the realistic path. Same year, same budget, same city. But instead of the 812 Competizione, which you were not offered because you are a Tier 1 buyer, you purchase an SF90 Stradale at $524,000 base, optioned to $680,000. You drive it 3,000 miles a year for 3 years. Your total carrying costs are similar: insurance, storage, taxes, consumables, roughly $100,000 over 3 years. But the SF90, a production hybrid with no unit cap, depreciates. At the end of year 3, your $680,000 SF90 cents is trading in the mid-400,000 seconds. You sell it for $460,000. After subtracting your $680,000 purchase price and $100,000 in carrying costs, you have lost $320,000. That is $106,000 per year in pure cost. The gap between those 2 scenarios is $1,365,000, and the only difference between the 2 buyers is not wealth, not taste, not driving ability. It is where they stood in a hierarchy they did not design, buying from a system that rewards patience and punishes newcomers. Let's do the math on what a typical 5-year ownership experience actually looks like for the average buyer, not the collector, not the flipper, just the person who buys a new 296 GTB and drives it on weekends. Purchase price, optioned, $410,000. Sales tax at 8%, $32,800. 5 years of insurance at $7,500 per year, $37,500 per year, $37,500 per. 5 years of maintenance and consumables, tires, brakes, wear items, all under the factory maintenance umbrella, $15,000. Paint protection, film, and ceramic coating to preserve that $18,000 paint job, $9,000. 5 years of fuel and climate-controlled storage, $25,000. Depreciation over 5 years, approximately 30% on a standard production model, $123,000. Add it all together, and the 5-year total cost of owning a Ferrari 296 GTB is approximately $242,300. That is $48,460 per year. That is $4,038 per month. That is $932 per week. For a car you drive on Saturdays, and Ferrari knows this. They know it better than you do. That is the entire point. Ferrari does not operate like an automobile company. It operates like Hermes with a V12. It trades on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker RACE, which is not a coincidence, at a price-to-earnings ratio of 45 to 50 times earnings, roughly identical to Hermes and roughly 10 times the multiple of BMW or General Motors. Its market capitalization hovers around $70 billion on fewer than 14,000 cars produced per year. That works out to approximately $5.1 million in market capitalization for every single car that rolls off the line in Maranello. General Motors produces 6.2 million vehicles per year and is worth $48 billion. Ferrari produces 0.2% of that volume and is worth more. The market does not price Ferrari as a car company. It prices Ferrari as a luxury toll system, one where the clients do not just pay the toll, they compete for the privilege of paying it. Enzo Ferrari once said that Ferrari would always deliver one car less than the market demands. That was not a production philosophy. It was a financial architecture. By manufacturing scarcity, capping output below demand every single year without exception, Ferrari ensures that its cars hold residual value, its clients remain desperate, its options revenue stays inflated, and its allocation hierarchy remains the most powerful sales tool in the automotive world. In 2024, Ferrari earned an operating profit of approximately $148,000 on every single car it shipped. Not revenue. Profit? That is more profit per unit than most luxury car brands generate in revenue per unit. That is not an accident. So if you do decide to buy a Ferrari, understand the one thing that will determine whether the experience is a dream or a very expensive lesson. It was never really about the car. The car is a $300,000 machine that goes very fast and sounds extraordinary doing it. The other $200,000, the options, the taxes, the insurance, the climate-controlled storage, the brakes that cost more than a sedan, the tires you will replace twice, the hierarchy you will spend years climbing. That is the actual product Ferrari is. Selling, you are not buying a car. You are buying a position in a system, and the system, like all truly elegant machines, runs on a single fuel. The unwavering belief that what you are paying for is worth more than what you are paying. The moment you stop believing that, the spell breaks. But Ferrari has been in business for nearly 80 years now. The spell has not broken yet.